All right, guys, let's talk about something that's gone a little viral lately, and a story that keeps not dying down here. So, as more and more pieces and layers keep coming out there, as Mark Gastineau is mad at Brett Favre, and this is all over the sack record that Michael Strahan broke back in 2002. That has since been tied by TJ Watt. And I want to say it was one other player that broke it as well, or tied Mark Gastineau as well. So, like, it's not even like he's the only one who did it, but this is being a big thing. So the two of them are at an event. They didn't disclose where the event was, but the event is basically, it wasn't a fan event. It was, my understanding, it was an event where, players go to sign memorabilia and stuff and get paid to do it, obviously. Um, so Mark Gastineau is there. Brett Favre is there. Brett Favre seems to go up to him to say hi and be
At
cordial.
least that's what the video takes. You can find it over Instagram or X.
Yeah. So, and this is all in preparation for ESPN as they're promoting a new 30 for 30 documentary, the New York Sack Exchange, obviously talking about the days of Mark Gastineau and Cleto and all those guys at that point from the 80s, back when the Jets had a somewhat decent team. Um, and like I said, the viral clip there shows them. And like I said, Brett Favre just seemed to be going up to say hi. Legitimately, like, listen,
Yeah,
Favre is a guy that a lot of people have a lot of issues with, and I can see why. I'll put it that way. But in this case here, he generally looked like he was just going over to be cordial and say hi. Um, so Mark Gastineau goes immediately into him and says, "When you fell down for Strahan, he says, and then he just says, I'm going to get my sack back. I'm going to get my sack back, dude." Favre says, "You probably would hurt me." Now, let's be honest here. Favre is being nice at this point because the guy is like 25 years older than Brett Favre, has all kind of medical issues we'll get into later on.
that's
Like,
about to say he's got a
yeah,
lot going on.
yeah. So, I mean, let's be honest here. Brett Favre can still take him. So, again, Brett Favre is doing things right. I never thought I'd say that phrase. Brett Favre is doing things right. Like, there's nothing I can sit there and say that he was a jerk about in that particular scenario. But anyway, after Brett Favre says that, Mark Gastineau says, "Well, I don't care. You hurt me. You hurt me. You hear me." I mean, and it's like there was like almost like tears in this man's eyes as he's saying this. And then
Yeah,
Favre
but
says, "Okay, sorry."
there you go. No, I'm saying you see
Yeah.
he was very upset, but he also, you can see that something wasn't quite right.
Yes. And Favre says, "Well," he says, "Yeah, I hear you." And then he says, "You really hurt me. You hurt me, Brett." And then somebody at the event, smartly, by the way, because I don't think there was
Yep.
actually a reason to pull Brett Favre away, or Brett Favre wouldn't have gone there in the first place to be cordial. But they say, "Hey, Brett, we got to go," and it was just his way of separating him at that point there. Now, again, this is all based on the fact that Michael Strahan, famously back in 2002, got his final sack on Brett Favre on the last game of the year, towards the end of the game, even. And a lot of people consider that it was a gimme. And Brett Favre, who, from all reports, actually had a friendship with Michael Strahan, wanted to go ahead and kind of help him out there. And it's been a kind of a battle back and forth. Did he help him? Did he not get him? What was the legitimate record at this point? And then you can't go back and change these things, obviously. You can't. If you go back and watch the replay, it looks, and I hadn't watched this in many years, but I watched it for this segment here. It looks like, and this is what was reported at the time, that it was supposed to be just a run up the middle, and instead Brett Favre just audibled it into being a QB run, which, let's be honest here, guys, Brett Favre did a lot of good things on the field. Running was not one of them. But he turned to go off to the right side of the line, and Michael Strahan was right there, and he just, it was the easiest sack ever, basically. He literally just fell to the ground the second Strahan touched him, which, in all fairness, you were dead to rights. You were not going anywhere. That wasn't the wrong part of it. But the question is, was this like a prearranged way to get him the record?
You could argue that. And does the tape look like that? How much were they friends at that point?
Yeah.
Did the friendship come afterwards? Because I
No,
think
but you
it's
want to hear a
more.
call beforehand.
What?
What I heard, they were friends beforehand.
From what you heard.
To what extent, I don't know.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But Brett Favre is in the Hall of Fame because he's done crazy things in his career.
Oh, yeah.
He's had so many touchdowns. He's had so many interceptions. You know, he's had a lot of sacks. He's up there with the most sacked quarterbacks ever. And when did he get drafted? 91, 92?
92, I want to say.
So 10 years of getting sacked. You kind of learn when to fight a little bit, when you're dead to rights.
Oh, yeah.
So, and what else was Brett Favre? He was a gun-slinging quarterback. He did whatever it took to win the game. And like you said, he's made a lot of right calls on the field. He's made wrong calls, but he was a good football player. It was fun to watch on the field. And what he's done, on the field, all right, I'm a gunslinger. I'm going to, call an audible. You're going to think it's going to run. It's going to open up the receivers down the field. And I'm just going to huck it down there. And sometimes you got 3 touchdowns out of that in the game. Sometimes you got 2 picks. Yeah. Sometimes he, scrambled too much, went for a run, got some negative yards. Sometimes he got positive yards. But after 10 years of doing all that, he kind of learned when to take a hit.
And I don't think anybody's going to blame on that. The whole question is whether it was a legitimate play or whether he legitimately designed a play to get sacked. And I do think, and I have no way of proving it, I do think he legitimately designed the play to get Strahan the sack. It just seems too well set up. Strahan went right through the line, practically untouched. He walked right into Favre basically at that point. It just seems to set up. It really does. And it was towards the end of the game. The Giants already lost the game to the Packers. There was no, it was just kind of end the game, kind of, time of the game there. And like I said, to me, it seemed that we'll never know. We'll never know, though. I mean, Deb says also, I saw it at the time and thought it was phony. Yeah, like I said, I definitely think it was. Now, Brett Favre, just today is recording this year on the 12th.
This morning around 7, 8 o'clock, I believe.
Yes, said a long statement here on basically every social media platform he was on. So it was 10 different tweets.
I was about to say, he started off on Twitter and he posted it off. I think it went down to actually 7.
I went and actually got it off of Facebook because you put it on Facebook and it was much better because it was all one thing. This is why I don't like X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. But some of these things. So he said, I want to clear the air on the footage release showing a small dust-up between myself and Mark Gastineau, the former New York Jet. Back in 2002, when Michael Strahan sacked me at the end of a game that we had wrapped up, I was in no way trying to hurt Mark Gastineau. I was trying to close out a game and squeeze the last bit of fun out of a hard-fought game. By the way, key words there. Trying to squeeze the last bit of fun. He's basically saying I gave him the sack without saying it right there.
Listen.
What else? What is he saying? What's so fun about getting sacked?
Well, listen, if he goes around and throws another touchdown, that's also fun for a quarterback because that's his job. That's what he's doing. And as a competitor, that's fun for them.
I guess.
You guess. Look, all right. Go back. You watch the one sack. Go back and watch every touchdown that man's thrown. You don't tell me there's glee in his face.
I watched him for years, obviously.
I hear what you're saying. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
When he went crazy, and had his best game ever, the day after his father died and stuff. I mean, there's stuff you always remember about Brett Favre if you grew up in that generation. I'm just saying. I think it was a fake. Anyway, he said, I booted out of a run thinking it'd be wide open. I saw Strahan standing there and ducked down. The game was over. There was no need for me to do anything spectacular. It probably wasn't Michael's best sack or tackle for loss. In a different game or situation, I would have made a bigger effort to avoid the tackle, the sack or tackle for loss. But at no point was I thinking about hurting Gastineau. Maybe it crossed my mind to help Strahan. I didn't think it through. That wasn't my forte at the time. I just wanted to have fun and compete. In retrospect, I understand how Gastineau feels. We played a brutal game. Gastineau played an era during where guys didn't make generational wealth. I I see now how being the sack king would elevate his value at card shows, strengthen his case for the Hall of Fame, increase his demand as a public speaker. I had no way of knowing that then. I realize now the potential financial implications because football is far more business oriented than when me or Mark played. That there was no malice on my part. Mark was a great player. My understanding is he's a great guy and a fun guy, fun teammate, a guy who played with the kind of joy and passion I tried to mimic. I understand his frustration, but I'm not his enemy. A while back, he saw me at a card show and got his frustration off his chest. It's not the kind of moment that should be filmed and released. It was a private moment of frustration between two old football warriors. I have a great deal of respect for Mark. I hope one day he joins me in the Hall of Fame. He earned it. Look at his numbers. He clipped 20 sacks twice and had 19 in another year. Mark definitely left an indelible mark on the game. I hope this controversy brings attention to just how great Mark Gastineau was. He belongs in Canton. Merry Christmas, everybody. Brett. Again, and I never thought I'd say it. Brett has done everything right in this situation because that was excellent. And you can tell he wrote it himself. This is definitely not a meaty like a marketing team did this for him. It'd be much more fancy and have much less breaks and sentences. But this is a very well written thing saying, everything that he could possibly say positive on the scenario. Now, after that, T.O. got in the mix. We got T.O. We got T.O. in the society here. Terrell Owens here.
That's not my quarterback.
He was on X and said to Favre after he posted that, said, while you're clear the air and the misappropriation of funds you were pocketing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Of course, referring to Brett Favre's allegedly pocketing millions in misappropriated funds intended for Mississippi residents in need, as well as allegations of him being paid for speaking appearances that he never even made. So I should say Favre did pay back all the funds and has not been charged with any crimes. So just to show both sides of that part there. But guys, you know what the real villain in all this is?
That he had a shot with Mary, but Brett Favre lost it.
Are you talking about something about Mary? Is that hair gel? It's a
Yeah.
spectacular movie. But no, the real villain of this, guys, is ESPN, point blank.
100%.
So back in 2018, for those who may not be aware, because we're talking 6 years ago now, back in 2018, Gastineau was revealed to be diagnosed with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and dementia. To parade this man around while dealing with those kind of medical issues for the sake of a documentary and having more people watch it is an absolute shame. Like, that is wrong on so many levels. It's not even funny. If you want to do a documentary on him, I'm not anti that. Let me be very clear on that. I am not saying because he has medical issues, you should not do a documentary about his life, but you should protect him from scenarios like this. Again, I never thought I'd say this. I agree with Brett. That should have been a private moment. That should never have been there. But they wanted to have more people watch their damn documentary than care about not embarrassing a man who's going through a lot of medical issues. And you could see by the way he was acting.
Yes.
That those were potentially, I want to say guarantee, but were at least potentially causing part of the emotion he had in that whole situation.
You could see. No.
I said, I'm not a doctor. I don't want to sit there and
I'm not a doctor, but the looks of it, like
I said,
you see the repeats, you can see just the way the mannerisms were, the way he presented himself, like you can see like just trying to get the words out. There was something off.
Yeah.
And like it's a shame.
He can't make money and do his signings and stuff like that. By all means, like I'm not trying to take his life away from him in that point and say that people shouldn't hire him for that. By all means, do that. By all means, if he wants to go out in the public even and do like signings and appearances at bars and stuff, that is his right as a human being to do that. This was a private moment between him and Brett Favre. Now, were the cameras rolling? Yes. Did Brett Favre know that? Probably. Honestly, it might be why he first went over there to be nice, so he could at least pop on camera. Well, that's a lot of retired players. What they do, they want to be on camera every chance they get, so people don't forget them. Not that I think people will forget Brett Favre anytime soon. He's one of the biggest names of that generation, but it's what they do. They don't get in front of the cameras much anymore. But when it boils down to it is ESPN's responsibility to protect someone who has given them a chance to peer into their life and see what's going on. Shame on you, ESPN, for not doing it.
And listen, 100% what you're saying. And we don't know what the contract looked like when it came to this documentary. And if you gave 100% of that clause to Gastineau, you why wouldn't you give it to his family to review what's going on? Because obviously between the Parkinson's, the dementia, and all the other.
You know what though? Yeah. I'm sure they even did that. I'm not going to put that on them. I'm sure they did that. But there still should be a level of human goddamn decency in that scenario. And say, you know what? This is a man who's dealing with a lot of health issues that do affect his mental well-being. I don't want to say mental health, but mental well-being, because these are issues that aren't necessarily mental health issues, but they cause mental issues, and you should want to protect him and not embarrass him. That should matter more than doing, an advertisement to get people to watch. Let's be honest, that's not going to be probably the most watched documentary, but I guarantee you people will watch it now. A lot more people watch it now because of that scene. And to show that is absolutely ridiculous. And I would encourage athletes who are looking at potentially doing a 30 for 30 to tell them where to shove it now after this.
Yeah, big time.
Until they apologize and remove the scene from the documentary, because that's utterly ridiculous. Here's a quote. This is back in 2018 when it was first announced his medical issues. This was in the Daily News. And this is Mark himself saying this. He said, "I used to go around and do yard work. My wife does everything for me now." And then he started sobbing and said, "It's not good. When I'm lying in bed until 3, 4, or 5 p.m., it's not good. There'll be days I get up and I'm good. My wife helps me get out of bed and she'll help me remember names." You don't make money off of that. You don't profit off of that. I'm sorry, ESPN, but that's one of the worst things I've ever seen that this channel do. And this is the same channel that gives Stephen A. Smith a chance to talk on a daily basis. And that man said all kinds of crazy stuff, and I think should be banished from talking about anything sports, basically, because he even knows sports. He knows basketball. That's it. But yeah, like I said, it's crazy. It really is, and it's a real shame, and it puts a black eye on documentary filmmakers, sports film people, all that stuff in one shot. There, it's sad. Yeah. Protect the person who's your subject. Now, if they had done something, let's say hypothetically he had no medical issues, and I'm not saying he would ever do this, but I'm just using it as an example. Let's say he walked into a bar, and the film crew went with him, and he started a bar fight and stuff like that, hypothetically. That's a different scenario. That's a poor choice he made. This is not that. This is a medical condition that you should not be showing like this, because I guarantee you just tell by watching it. And by the quote he gave 6 years ago, you got to imagine things were worse than 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Things don't get better with these scenarios. I just, like I said, I'm embarrassed for ESPN. I really am. That's pathetic.
If you like that clip, then you will love the full episodes too. Find us on your favorite podcast app and look for us on all your favorite social media platforms.
Thanks so much.
Please, I'm begging you. Please.